Hello. So today I'm going to be presenting my oral media presentation on my book, The Glass Hotel. So the three themes that I thought were most prominent in my book was guilt, addiction, and fraud. And here are some thematic connections that I made. So for the first one, I found the connections addiction and guilt, and it's how Paul sold illegal drugs to Charlie in the book, which actually resulted in his death. So Charlie was addicted to these drugs, and Paul sold him ones that were laced, and he actually passed away from that. And I found a TED talk on how drugs affect people's life and how you can become addicted and it can turn your entire life upside down. For the second one, I found thematic connections to guilt and fraud, and it's how Jonathan is the head of a big scamming business that scams people off their all their wealth, their life savings, their uh, pensions, and here's a YouTube video on how online fraud, how you can prevent it, and how it is out there. The third one I found was guilt, and it was just a piece of artwork, and it was after it reminded me of in the book how, like, if Jonathan were to be sitting in jail, that's exactly what he would be looking like. After being caught for doing his fraud, he must be sitting in prison going, why did I do this? And that's exactly the image that, when I seen that image, exactly what I would be thinking that Jonathan would be doing. Self-examination, super guilty of what he's done. And for the fourth one, I found fraud and guilt to tied into the theme, with also a piece of artwork. And this one actually ties in with the ghosts and spirits that Jonathan experiences after. Oh, oops. And this actually ties in with the ghosts and spirits that Jonathan experienced after he goes to jail. The addiction is for the fifth one, and this one's a quote. It says, "He got some of that bad E." So when they say that, that he means that when Paul sold Charlie some of that bad drugs, which is exactly what it sounds like, bad ecstasy, and it kills him because of how bad the chemicals were in there, laced in there. But the sixth one is addiction and guilt, and it was also a quote from the book, and it said 20 lines of coke in the bathroom in 20 minutes. And this is what happened with the girls in the book. And when I read that, it just put me right at, I was like, really? Like, this is just a normal thing that they're doing in the book? And that just totally is out of line and is totally addiction, that you're doing cocaine in the bathroom with a bunch of friends. The seventh one that I found was the A-Team. And this one's actually a song by Ed Sheeran. And it's about a young girl who's actually addicted to drugs, and she can't get herself out of it, and she can't save her life. So this is just someone heading down the wrong path, and it's actually a great song that I used to listen to a lot. The eighth one is addiction and how peer pressure could affect your life, and it's just an article on how your people you surround yourself with and the people that you hang out with could really make big decisions on your life, especially if you're hanging out with the wrong friends. Oops. Number 9 is guilt, and it's a piece of artwork that shows the paranormal activity that's found in the book. After Jonathan goes to jail, after he commits all these crimes, he's haunted by ghosts, and this is just a picture of a man sitting there, and you can see that he's kind of embedded by spirits around him. The 10th one is fraud. If you see, it's a quote. If you see fraud and you do not say fraud, you are fraud. And I when I read this quote, I really liked it because it's just like bullying. If you see bullying and you don't do anything about it, you're just as bad as the bully. The 11th one is guilt. This is a TED talk that shows the different levels of guilt that could be experienced through someone's life. So some people feel guilty when they just look at someone bad, And then there's some people that can go out and kill somebody and not feel any remorse or guilt. So that's just a TED talk about how different people's mindsets are different. The 12th one is addiction, and it's a piece of art that demonstrates the addiction that people get to cigarettes, drugs, and all that stuff that can ruin your life. 13th one is fraud and guilt, and this one is probably the most interesting one because this one relates to me as well. This article is about social insurance fraud in Niagara Falls. So I got about 60 to 70 calls from these people asking for my social insurance number, and they're trying to scam me. Obviously, I didn't fall for it. And it's just a Niagara Falls review on how you got to be aware for that these days. The 14th one is guilt and addiction, and it's an article based on the Boston Marathon and how some people are actually addicted to terrorism, believe it or not. So some people are actually like they can't help themselves but go out and hurt other people. They have no other purpose, and that's all they want to do. So that one I find ties in really well to the theme of guilt and even possibly addiction. And the last one ties into all three themes: addiction, fraud, and guilt. And it's the laundering of illegal money. So it's a guilty conscience, obviously, when you're doing that. The addiction is when you're receiving money, obviously, the drug is the addiction there when you're receiving the cocaine money, turning it into legal money. And the fraud is obviously money laundering is a huge fraud. So this one ties into all three themes, in my opinion. Thanks for listening.